Hi everyone, welcome to Corporate Accounting Individual Assignment. My name is Dilin Pereira, student ID ENE3302. This assignment is about issues in cash flow statement. The main purposes of this study are to understand about income statement and cash flow statement and use of cash flow statement to comprehend different key business decisions taken by the management. Furthermore, this study is structured to review the existing literature to examine the relative information content of the income statement and cash flow statement and examine the consolidated cash flow statement of BHP Limited, Santosh Limited, and Fantastic Limited for fact finding to given task. Moving into part A. In this section, after examining the relative information contained in the income statement and cash flow statement, income statement means in simply revenue minus expenses. Investors find income statement useful because to derive financial health of the company. In perspective to investor, use of income statements is made to derive performance within a specific time period. On the other hand, cash flow statement exhibits the amount of cash and cash equivalents entering and leaving a company. In this case, investors find it useful to measure company's cash position for future decision making such as funding and lending because it allows to understand how a company's operations are running, where its money is coming and being spent. Moving into part B. Examine and fact finding of consolidated cash flow statements. The three companies that have been given to examine are BHP Limited, Santosh Limited, and Fantastic Limited. As you can see in the slide, a summary of major sources and uses of cash of each company is illustrated in the table opposite. As you can see the graphical view of trend in the slide, the trend of cash flow from continuing operations is identified positive in both BHP Limited and Santosh Limited, while Fantastic Limited showing negative in the last 3 years of operations. After examining the BHP Limited cash flow from operating and net profit after tax, the table opposite highlights the difference between cash flow from operating and net profit after tax. The differences is identified due to recording of different non-cash transactions while evaluating profit after tax such as accounts payables and accounts receivables. The table in left side exhibits the capital expenditure for each firm's economic year. Considering the cash flow from continuing operations that I discussed earlier, ability of generating cash for capital expenditure for PHP Limited and Santosh Limited is effective, and for Fantastic Limited due to negative balance of cash flow from continuous operations, payment of capital expenditure is insufficient. On the other hand, due to negative balance from cash flow from continuing operations, dividend value is derived to be zero in Fantastic Limited and BHP Limited and Santosh Limited creates sufficient cash flow from continuing operations to pay dividends. Continuing Part B, it is identified that all three organizations are insufficient to generate excess cash from cash flow from operations. Therefore, no further investment can be made. Furthermore, according to BHP Limited 2019 annual report, the company has used working capital as a source of cash for additional cell loss in Brazil. On the other hand, it has been highlighted that cash flow of all three companies are effective. Therefore, the major items that can affect cash flow from operations are increase in assets including trade receivables, inventory, and payables. Let's talk about the trend of capital expenditure. Considering the operation of present year, amount for capital expenditure is developing effectively in BHP Limited and Santosh Limited, while inefficient capital expenditure growth are derived in Fantastic Limited. When focusing on trend of dividends, according to annual reports of each company, Fantastic Limited have ineffective maintenance of dividend, while BHP Limited and Santosh Limited is developing dividend pay effective in present operations. As you can see in the slide, the net borrowing trend for each company is slightly decreasing, and in 2019, comparing to 2017 and 18, the amount of net borrowing is reduced in all companies. Furthermore, the trend of working capital in BHP Limited in 2019 is low comparing to year 2017 and 18 due to decrease of current assets. Moving into next slide. Based on the annual reports of each company, financial strength of BHP Limited can be identified from effective evaluation of capital expenditure and cash flow from operations for the current year. Moreover, the both Santosh Limited and Fantastic Limited financial strength can be analyzed from capital expenditure. However, for the lending purposes, selection of BHP Limited will be successful in contrast with the other two associations examined in the study. Finally, to conclude, I have summarized the key findings of this presentation. First one is, according to 2019 BHP Limited annual report, the company has used its working capital as a source of cash for additional cellulose in Brazil. Second, BHP Limited has proven its financial strength from effective evaluation of capital expenditure and cash flow operations for current year and qualifying for future lending purposes, while Fantastic Limited is still in progression stage. This is the end of my presentation, and thanks for watching and stay safe.